When something goes wrong at the supermarket, it can have devastating effects on consumers and destroy their trust for years to come. Here are some scandals that grocery stores and their customers won't forget anytime soon. For the convenience of their customers, many large grocery chains include a pharmacy. Kroger is one supermarket that goes the extra mile by also offering an in-store walk-in clinic at select locations. The idea behind the Little Clinic, which the Kroger company acquired in 2010, was to make healthcare more accessible by offering extended hours and being placed in locations people are already going to on a regular basis, like a grocery store. Unfortunately, both pharmacies and medical offices retain a lot of private patient information that can easily be put to nefarious use, something that approximately 3.82 million Kroger Pharmacy and the Little Clinic patients discovered on February 19, 2021. In December 2020 and January 2021, hackers gained access to patients' names, email addresses, home addresses, phone numbers, birth dates, insurance information, medical information, and social security numbers. By July of that same year, Kroger had agreed to pay $5 million in a class action settlement. Kroger also agreed to provide credit monitoring free of charge to those affected and to strengthen its patient information security. Safeway is another large supermarket chain that offers medical care to its customers. So, when the Theranos Corporation announced that it had invented technology for performing rapid blood tests using compact devices, the chain took notice.
We've made it possible to eliminate the tubes and tubes of blood that traditionally have to be drawn from an arm.
In 2012, Safeway invested over $10 million in the company and spent $350 million building clinics for the devices in around 800 of its locations. But Theranos missed deadline after deadline because the machines didn't work. So in 2015, the partnership ended. Safeway's former CEO, Stephen Bird, who retired in 2013, testified about the bad deal at the 2021 trial of Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes. The clinics that were built were put to use doling out flu shots and other vaccinations to customers, but getting sucked into one of the largest medical scams of the early 21st century is a bad look. A Kroger company internal document entitled The State of the Associate and marked confidential lays bare just how underpaid Kroger employees across the country were as of 2017. According to the document, most employees are considered to be living in poverty and need state aid, as in food stamps, free school lunch, etc., just to get by. When the document was leaked in January 2022, the reaction wasn't great, to say the least. That same month, nearly 9,000 employees of Colorado's King Soopers, a chain of grocery stores owned by Kroger, went on strike for, among other things, better wages.
Basically, what we're asking for is a $15 minimum wage so we can have a better opportunity to support our families.
Kroger offered them a starting wage of only 13 cents above Denver's minimum wage, where the cost of living is 16% higher than the national average. In the fall of 2022, Kroger barely managed to avoid another employee strike in Ohio. Under the new contract, the majority of union employees were given a $1 per hour raise. A few months later, in January 2023, a class action lawsuit was filed against the company by workers who claimed wage theft. The employee's attorney, Rachel Natus, told Insider, "These are workers who are not in a position to have their paychecks reduced." This isn't a great track record for one of the largest grocery chains in the U.S. Supermarkets experience product recalls on an increasingly common basis. Sometimes it's due to E. coli or salmonella contamination. Other times, unsafe objects, such as broken glass, have been found mixed in with the food. But finding worms inside Kirkland brand halibut fillets is not only memorable, but downright disgusting. In 2022, Dr. Vahid Burgess, his wife, and 2 children sued Costco Wholesale Corp., asking for $200,000 in damages. The family had purchased a package of Kirkland fresh wild Pacific halibut fillets from a Costco in San Dimas, California. After cooking and eating some of the fish, they were shocked to see live worms wriggle out of the fillet. The 2 children swore off seafood from that moment on, which might be a good idea considering that finding parasitic worms in fresh seafood isn't uncommon. But if the fish is cooked thoroughly, the worms pose no danger when eaten. The Burgess family charged Costco with failing to educate staff and customers about the possible presence of parasites. Whole Foods was founded to promote healthier eating, and only foods deemed to be, quote, natural are permitted on its shelves. When it comes to meat, the company pledges no antibiotics ever. So more than a few jaws dropped in late August 2022 when that claim was proven to be false, resulting in a lawsuit alleging fraud. Farm Forward performed independent tests on beef purchased from Whole Foods and found trace amounts of the growth antibiotic monensin sodium and antiparasitic fenbendazole. There is no federal testing to verify claims that cattle were raised without antibiotics. This means that consumers have little choice but to trust the labels and promises of retailers. Whole Foods broke that trust and got caught. It's a cautionary tale that many are likely to heed in the future. California's Safe Drinking Water and Toxic Enforcement Act of 1986, better known as Prop 65, was designed to protect sources of drinking water from chemical contamination that might result in increased risks of cancer, birth defects, or reproductive toxicity. Businesses are required to inform the public if their products may contain such chemicals. Prop 65 has been used many times to protect public health, such as in 2022 when Kroger was sued by for-profit environmental activist group Ecological Alliance, LLC. The group tested 25 Kroger brand items purchased from a Kroger-owned grocery store in Southern California. Of those, 15 tested positive for an unhealthy amount of lead. The contaminated products included organic diced peaches and pears with 11.7 micrograms of lead per serving. The legal limit is 0.5 micrograms per serving. A spinach salad kit contained 70.1 micrograms per serving. Also contaminated were frozen vegetables, fresh fruit, and breakfast cereals. Speaking of lead, Kroger isn't the only national grocery chain to get caught with unsafe levels in its store-branded food. In January 2023, Trader Joe's was sued in the state of New York after Consumer Reports found high levels of lead and cadmium in 2 of Trader Joe's dark chocolate bars, Trader Joe's Dark Chocolate 72% Cacao and Trader Joe's Dark Chocolate Lovers Chocolate 85% Cacao. Thomas Ferranti, the plaintiff, claimed, "High levels of lead and cadmium in food products is material to reasonable consumers because these chemicals pose serious health risks, even in small dosages. When cadmium accumulates in the body, it can lead to kidney disease, fragile bones, and even cancer. And low levels of lead can affect a person's ability to learn. It's particularly dangerous in children."
In young children, the metals can cause developmental problems, affect brain development, and lead to lower IQ.
According to the CDC, there is no safe blood level of lead. On March 13, 2023, California-based law firm Schubert Johnkier and Colby LLP opened an investigation into whether or not Trader Joe's conduct surrounding this matter violated state or federal law. The investigation is ongoing. Misrepresenting the beef it sells wasn't the only time Whole Foods mislabeled its products. Back in 2012, the company was fined nearly $800,000 when price discrepancies were uncovered in certain Southern California stores. Then in 2015, New York City's Department of Consumer Affairs, or DCA, discovered evidence that Whole Foods locations within the city had been mislabeling the weights of prepackaged meat, dairy, and baked goods, leading to massive overcharging. DCA Commissioner Julie Menin said at the time, "Our inspectors tell me this is the worst case of mislabeling they have seen in their careers, which DCA and New Yorkers will not tolerate."
Than 80 different types of categories of prepackaged foods. In all 80, there were significant overcharges.
While at first Whole Foods denied the DCA's accusations, its co-CEOs John Mackey and Walter Robb quickly apologized to customers in a video. The pair promised that if a customer was ever again overcharged for an item, they would get the item for free. The DCA also vowed to keep an eye on the situation. In 2019, after a 3-year battle, a lawsuit filed against Whole Foods by a customer over the mischarges was thrown out of court by a Manhattan federal judge. US-based supermarket chains aren't the only ones leaving themselves open to scandal. Loblaws Companies Limited is one of Canada's largest food distributors. In 2017, it was revealed that Loblaws had been party to fixing the price of bread industry-wide for an impressive 14 years. A $1 billion class action lawsuit was quickly filed by anti-poverty activist Irene Brecken, who told CBC News, "I'm very involved with many people who have very little. They don't have money for the basics. And then when you find out that these large corporations are cheating us, it's just wrong." As an apology, Loblaws offered $25 gift cards to customers, but Brecken scoffed at the amount.
The $25 over all these years doesn't seem to be enough. But again, it comes across as symbolic.
Another lawsuit was allowed to go ahead on December 31st, 2021. By that time, it was estimated that Loblaws customers had been overcharged by a total of $5 billion. As of January 2023, multiple lawsuits in Ontario and Quebec, as well as an investigation by the Competition Bureau, were still unresolved and had spread to other Canadian grocers as well. In 2022, grocery customers in the UK were outraged to learn that their supermarkets were allowing more than 200,000 tons of food to go to waste, the estimated equivalent of 190 million meals every year. Companies like Tesco and Aldi tightly restrict where their surplus food can be donated. If these restrictions were altered, far more food could go to people in need rather than being used as animal feed or being tossed in the trash. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many more people rely on food banks than ever before. The UK is also not exempt from post-pandemic inflation and rising food costs. Member of Parliament Daniel Zeichner said, "The amount of food that goes to waste is a scandal when millions of children in this country are going hungry." He expressed his belief that the government needed to step in to help correct this travesty. Price fixing and overcharging aren't the only ways a supermarket can commit fraud. Popular East Coast American chain Wegmans was sued in October 2019 for misrepresenting its store brand vanilla premium ice cream. Two customers were surprised to learn that their vanilla ice cream did not in fact contain any vanilla and decided to call the chain out on it. The list of ingredients included, quote, natural flavoring, which is an umbrella term that, in the case of the ice cream, may not include vanilla. The lawsuit justifiably claimed that customers purchasing ice cream labeled vanilla expect vanilla to be the flavoring ingredient, not some mystery additive such as, and we're not kidding here, beaver anal secretions. Called castoreum, this substance has been added to food since at least ancient Roman times. But Wegmans denied that their ice cream was misleading in any way, and in 2020, they beat the lawsuit. In 2014, more than 300 pounds of cocaine showed up in boxes of bananas shipped to Aldi stores in Germany. This wasn't an isolated incident. Not even a year and a half later, just over 850 pounds of cocaine, 15 million euros worth, popped up in another shipment of Aldi bananas that had made its way from Colombia to Germany. In 2019, yet another shipment of cocaine was found mixed in with Aldi bananas, this time more than 1,100 pounds. The discovery was made by employees at 6 different German stores as well as a warehouse. Because the quantity was a record high, German police searched other stores, but no more drugs were found. It turns out that finding cocaine in shipments of fruit from Latin America isn't all that uncommon. As recently as August 2023, Spanish police discovered 9.5 tons of cocaine hidden inside banana boxes, one of the largest seizures in that country to date. However, there was no word on if this shipment was intended for Aldi stores.